Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Controllers here, where I review controllers. And today we're going to be doing one that a lot of people have been asking for. This is going to be the Flydigi. This is going to be the Vadar Pro. Now, many people consider this one of the best controllers on the market. We're going to see what I think about this. This is the Vadar 4, so it's their newest version. They've had other versions. This came out last year, of course. I've had this for quite a while. So in the review, we're going to break it up with first, we're going to talk about the aesthetics and the ergonomics, how it feels. Secondly, we're going to talk about basically everything on the face, the buttons, the D-pad, the joysticks. And then we're going to talk about everything on top, the triggers and the bumpers, and then everything on the back, which usually the back buttons and the grip. And then I'm going to tell you about any special features, if you should buy it, and I'm going to give it a classical score out of 10. That way we start to rank controllers and see how they stack up against each other. And yes, I do plan on doing comparisons of this to stuff like the Scuff Valor Pro and other controllers like the GameSir Cyclone 2. I actually have the Cyclone 2 right here. So we will do these comparisons in a separate video. Let's focus on this. First, let's just talk about the aesthetics and the ergonomics. It's a pretty good looking controller. They make a few limited edition versions like an Assassin's Creed version, which I happen to have and I think looks really, really nice as well. This is going to be sort of like your stock black version. It looks really good. Very similar to an Xbox controller, like in that same type of design. You know, you have the sticks offset like that. So overall, it looks great. I mean, it's a monochromatic design. I don't want to spend too much time on the aesthetics of this thing because people buy it for gaming, for FPS. And that's going to be one of the most vital aspects of it. And obviously, ergonomic wise, as I hold it in my hand like this, feels really good. Once again, very similar to an Xbox controller. Throughout the video, you're going to be hearing it. I love clicky buttons, and this controller has a smattering of clicky buttons. So if you like clicky controllers, you're going to be happy with this. That's part of the ergonomics. The feel is fantastic. It has a grip, but it's like an Xbox grip. If you've held an Xbox stock controller, it feels very, very similar. Maybe the size is slightly different, but it feels really, really similar. You can see they were going for that Xbox feel. When they designed this controller, everything, even the thumbsticks feel good. Ergonomically, really, really fantastic controller, and it looks very good. So now let's start with the face of the controller. What makes it different? What's nice about this controller? Well, first, let's talk about these buttons, micro switches. I'm a huge fan of micro switches and buttons. I mean, it's crazy that a controller like this that you can get for like under 80 bucks has so many features that like a stock Xbox controller, you know, it's still pretty expensive. And I mean, this is around the price of like a DualSense controller. Even though DualSense controllers have a lot of tech in them with the adaptive triggers, they don't have, you know, nearly as much as this controller has going on, just in terms of the tactile feel and different things like that. So face buttons, very good. These are, you know, as responsive as you would want. You have all your buttons as like little micro switch buttons. And then you do have the two buttons on the bottom here. That's going to be a C and a Z as they label it. These you can map to different controller functions, keyboard functions. They don't have the same tactility as the other buttons, but you're not likely to use these for, you know, things when you're playing in a game nearly as much. Maybe they'll be like for menu buttons or something like that, or shortcuts. But these feel really good. So that's already a great start. And speaking of start, here's the start button. And then you have the other button on the other side. And then you're also going to have two buttons on the bottom here. These are all just regular buttons. And you can see part of the aesthetics here. I turned it on. You get a little bit of RGB. This controller doesn't look as good as Flydigi's Apex 4, which has like a screen and a lot going on with the RGB. It's more simple, but it's also cheaper. And I kind of happen to like this one better than the Apex 4. The Apex 4 has a lot of great features, but I like some of these, the triggers, for example, better on this one. So as we go near the face, and then we have the D-pad. It's as you can listen here, very, very tactile D-pad. It feels very, very good. You know, like the Xbox D-pads are generally very good as well. They're very responsive. This one feels great. You definitely hear it. You know, it's when you're pressing around in it, it's maybe not the most accurate because it does move around a bit. You could see when I'm, pressing it, it kind of moves a bit, but it's still pretty close to a very, very excellent D-pad. I wouldn't really have any qualms with this. Maybe somebody who plays just fighting games may have some opinion on it, or retro games, but I think for overall use, it's fine. And it sounds pretty good. It feels pretty good. It definitely bounces around a bit. You can see here when I click it, you can see it, yeah, it bounces around a bit. It's not like singular buttons. Like sometimes you'll have a split D-pad on some controllers. So now one of the biggest features here are going to be the thumbsticks. Now these are going to be Hall Effect thumbsticks. Not quite TMR, but Hall Effect is still pretty good. So you're not likely to get any drift. Most of these third-party controllers now come with either Hall Effects or TMR. So that's very nice to see. They feel pretty good, and you can take them out and swap them. Let's say if you ever want to, do a little bit different one, you can do, slightly different heights. So that's very, very cool. And then they just click right back into place. If I can get this in here, there we go. You hear it click. Don't put it without clicking because it's going to fly off when you're playing. Probably the best feature of the thumbsticks, you can adjust the tension. You see this little ring here? You just turn the little ring around. Let's say you turn it all the way to the left. Look how loose the sticks are. Very, very loose. Some people may like that. They may like playing with this. Depending on the game you're doing, maybe you just want really, really loose. A lot of people, when they play an FPS game, they want that like heavy stick tension. So you just turn it like that. That's what you got to do. You don't need a tool or anything. You can turn both all the way if you want to. And all of a sudden, the sticks are considerably heavier. But it feels, it feels nice and heavy. And I kind of like that. It's not like too heavy where it's hard to push, but you definitely can adjust on the fly the stick tension. Now, the Apex 4 can also do that, but it's a little more complicated. You have to open up the front faceplate. There's a little tool that you use. And even the Xbox Elite 2 can also adjust the tension, which it's one of the few controllers that can do that. But same thing with that. You need a little tool. You need to pull off the thumbstick and then adjust it with the little key tool. This one, by far the easiest. And people who like custom controllers, like I did a review of a Battle Beaver PlayStation 5 controller. And even with TMR, they can do adjusted tension for your sticks if you want. If you want extreme tension, as they call it, with X amount of grams weight, they can do that. So it's actually really, really heavy, much heavier than this. But then you're stuck with whatever tension you choose. This one, you can choose on the fly. So that's a big, big selling point for this controller. No doubt about it. Very, very fantastic. So overall, the face of the controller looks good and it feels good. And definitely for the under $80, that's one of the best on the market, I would say. Now, let's see if we continue that trend on the top of the controller. And then this is just a plug-in. There's a little device they sell to attach a phone if you want to do mobile gaming. It's a phone holder, basically. It doesn't come with the controller, but you can get that accessory. That's what this little insert is, or this little area is, a little adapter. So now, the bumpers, I'm going to let you hear them. Very short travel. The bumpers are not as tactile as a micro switch. It sounds kind of like an Xbox bumper, very close. That's probably the closest, but a little bit different still. The bumpers are good. They're tactile. They're good. They're not the best bumpers I've ever really clicked. Like this controller here is, it's a little cheaper than this one. It doesn't have quite the same features, but listen to the bumper. This is the Machinique G5 Pro. Listen to those bumpers. Now this one, a little more mundane, if you will. That's a cool bumper. Like that's the best part of this controller, but that's for another video. Where it gets really good, the triggers. Now that's a micro switch. They're they're fairly light and responsive. You can easily go really, really fast if you want. Depending on the game, sometimes you may have to, but extremely good reactions. And now obviously you get your little tabs here. Now, they're regular triggers. Now, this is, in my opinion, much better than the Apex 4, which is much more expensive because that just has Hall Effect triggers that are like this. And that one does have the software. Space Station is the same software that you can actually use for this controller as well to fine tune a lot of little details. That one you can adjust the triggers where you can make it do different things, almost like adaptive triggers. But I prefer this. This is a lot simpler and it just feels good. Like for an FPS game or something like that, you can, you can go from playing like Forza 5 or a racing game with these regular triggers with the full pull. You push that up and you can do this easily when you're playing. Look at that. Doesn't take any effort. You barely have to move your hands from the controller. And then you can have your clicky, rapid fire triggers if you're playing Call of Duty or an FPS game or anything like that. So the triggers are fantastic. That's part of the reason why this controller is so good, along with the face buttons. The triggers are really, really good. As we go to the back, we have the little switch there, as I showed you. And then you're going to be able to switch. Obviously, this works on the Nintendo Switch, no pun intended. You can switch to the Nintendo Switch setting down here. And this has like 6-axis gyro and things like that and support for the Nintendo Switch, which is really cool. Obviously, you can do Bluetooth or the little, the dongle that you connect. And you can also buy, Flydigi sells this. This is going to be the little base for it. Back here, you can plug in the USB dongle and basically use this as your receiver, and the controller charges as well. So it puts it right here. The dongle itself is actually, it's quite good. Maybe the controller doesn't sit on it quite as easily. Like if you've used some of the Xbox charging stations like that Razer makes, for example, that one's a little more magnetic. The controller just fits better. This one, you got to really kind of play with it to make sure it connects, but it looks gorgeous. You can get it in white as well. And then back here, you'll have your connection to the PC. And then you could have your wireless dongle here. So that way you could be very close. And this does have 1,000 hertz polling rate wirelessly. So very, very fast response. No, you're not going to really get input lag or anything like that. And the dongle can charge the controller. So the back here, now you're going to have your back buttons. You have 4 of them that you can remap to basically any button, any of the face buttons or anything else that you would want. So here you have your 4 buttons. Ergonomically, they are good. They're a little bit lighter in terms of the tactility. This is how they sound like. These are the outside buttons. I'm going to press the inside now. A little different. Yeah, they're fine. They're a little bit soft, but ergonomically, you can reach them very well. Like you don't, let's say if you just use your middle finger for example, very easy to move between the buttons, and then they're in a pretty good place. This is usually where you would place, like if you were doing custom buttons on like a Battle Beaver controller or something like that. That's usually where you would place them. So overall, the buttons are good. Maybe they're not the best, the most clicky that I've seen on the market, but overall it is good. It's ergonomically good. It's responsive. And then you do have your grip here. It's nothing too crazy. It's like an Xbox grip. So it does feel textured. So that's nice. The front of the controller is smooth. And then the back is going to be a texture. So overall, a nice grip. That's basically a rundown of what makes this controller good. And then when you factor in the fact that you can get it for under $80, that's what makes it pretty impressive. Like first party controllers are pretty expensive and they don't have anywhere near the number of features that this does. And obviously you do have the Space Station software as well that you can adjust even more parameters, stuff like how the thumbsticks are and different settings related to that. So that's all pretty good. The software does get a lot of updates, and it seems to, Flydigi seems to pretty much stay on top of it pretty well. So this is a controller that a lot of people consider one of the best controllers on the market. And I think I definitely have to agree. It's definitely up there. If giving it a classical score out of 10, that way we can sort of measure it against other controllers. I think considering the features this has, the price, I would say it has to be a 9 out of 10. And that's being strict with it. I'm not just going to give a 10 out of 10 to any controller. And this does have a few shortcomings that maybe I don't like nearly as much. Like the bumpers, I feel could be a little better. The D-pad is good, but it does move around a lot, as you click it. Overall, it does feel good. The back buttons could be a little better. So this isn't, the end game controller by any means, but for under $80, probably definitely the best you're going to get. And then obviously the GameSir Cyclone 2 is like a similar version almost to this, but this is even cheaper. And it also comes with its little dock, and it has the little clickies. You know, I love the clickies. That usually adds a good amount for me in terms of the score. But talk about the the Hall effect adjustable thumbsticks. So a lot of features that this controller has that others don't, and the performance is generally very, very good. I haven't had really any issues. The build quality is very solid. So for under 80 bucks, this is a very, very good controller. Definitely, it's on the top list of controllers you can get for the PC. And obviously, if you're going to play it on the Switch and things like that, it's definitely near the top, if not the top, depending on your budget. So I like this better than the more expensive Apex 4, for example. So I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. A very, very good controller. And it's not crazy expensive. And it just feels good. It's really hitting all the right spots. All right, guys, so remember to subscribe. I'm going to be doing only controller reviews and more of them coming up and different comparisons as well. And I'll see you guys on the next video.